Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm super excited to introduce you all to Dale. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's so nice to be here. Thanks, Caitlin.
We have been chatting back and forth for some time now, and I just love your energy and what you're able to offer to part of our community in entrepreneurship, but in the workforce in general, that is never really talked about. So, can you share with us what you do and who you are?
I will do my best.
Okay.
Um, I would say to describe myself, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Um, and I've had about four businesses. This is probably my last one. I've had a catering business, which taught me I like to cook, but I hate to cater. I've been a professional clown, and I had a marketing consultancy for 25 years, which I closed last year and started something called Share Your Courage. And there's a program that I have in Share Your Courage, which is called Reimagine Retirement, because everyone thinks that to do retirement, they plan their financial, they plan their estate, and they so often miss the personal planning. A lot of them think they have so many interests, it won't be a problem. Part of it's the culture. There's so much misinformation in the culture. It's unbelievable. And a lot of outdated assumptions, both on the part of people that are looking at retiring or having retired, and the culture. So, for instance, did you know that before 1900, no one retired?
Wow.
And 1930, with the Depression, brought in a need for employing younger people. And that's when Social Security was introduced in 1935. And the government made a big push, and they sold it on relaxing, finally stopping work. But here's the catch. The life expectancy was 63. You could retire when you were 65. So it wasn't that big a benefit for the government to have to pay out at the time. That idea has not really changed. And here's what's happened. Our life expectancies now is up to about 84, I think. And we've got from age 60 to 80, which are very productive years. And nobody's even talking to it. It's
Yeah,
crazy. It's
it
crazy.
really
And
is
there's a
all
lot of unhappiness because there are three huge shifts that go on in retirement, and actually in any kind of job change, but mainly retirement. The first shift is the shift from work structure, to no structure. That would be big enough for anybody, because
yeah.
all of a sudden having to fill time is a little more challenging sometimes than you think. Maybe not for the first 6 months, because
Yeah.
you're able to relax and have fun and kind of just regroup. Second change is going from work community, to fragmented community. And it
Yes.
depends on how strong your outside communities are, but they're always a little fragmented. I mean, you may have friends with golf, and you may have friends with church, and you may have friends in other places, but they're not in one place.
Yeah.
And so that can be difficult. Then
Yeah.
the third one is the shift in identity. The shift
Mm.
in identity is having a title in your work, and it is remarkable how tied our personal identity is tied to that title. I mean, when
Yeah.
you said, "Who are you?" and I said, "Entrepreneur." So that's how we think of it. I think it's normal. But you
Definitely.
go from title to no title. And then so you're at a party when you've just retired, and somebody says, "What do you do?" And you say, "I'm retired." And the answer is, "Oh."
Yeah.
As opposed to, "Wow, that's so interesting. Tell me more."
Right, right. And then people
Right?
are like, what are your hobbies? Right? Like they don't know what
Yeah,
the follow-up
yeah,
question would be. And I can
yeah,
see it from both sides, right? As the retiree, wanting to
Sure.
communicate and be social, right? And the
Yeah.
person on the other side thinking like, oh my gosh, well, all I do is talk to people about careers. So this is
Right.
so uncomfortable, for them.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
um,
It's
and
true. I don't
I
know what to say. Right.
Right. I feel this so deeply because I love what you mentioned before you shared the 3 points of really like the turning into retirement. I would
Hmm.
say what we talk about all the time on this show is you're spot on. This is also exactly what it's like when you become an entrepreneur, even when you're changing businesses, right?
Yes.
Like as we're all
Yeah.
developing too.
Yes. I think the entrepreneurs have an easier time with it because
Yeah.
they're very used to uncertainty. And we are all, we get pretty comfortable being uncertain, even though it's a little wonky for all of us sometimes. It's
Yeah.
but people that have been in jobs, particularly in corporate jobs or in professions, can really have a hard time with it. And another problem is that, they really don't know how to think about it. Nobody's ever, it's like, do you remember being in college? Did anybody ever talk to you about your career?
Right. Right.
Nobody ever talked to me about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
it
was
took a
maybe
long
brought
time
up.
for me to find it.
Right. Like if they say like, oh, when you work, because I was in communication school. So they would always say when you work in an agency. And it was like
There
that
you
was the
go.
only option, right? So it's
Right.
like so uncomfortable too. But yeah, no
Yes.
one really talks about the next steps
Mm-mm.
after
No.
college, let alone retirement. I mean,
Right.
I don't hear anybody talking about this. And I
No.
see it as almost like an epidemic,
It
of
is an epidemic. I believe it
yeah,
is. And so here's the other piece is when they think about retirement, the culture says travel, golf, or, some hobby, grandkids. And then the only other image is nursing home.
yeah,
And all it is so rife in the culture with all of the pictures are that. That's what retirement is identified as. The one thing they leave out two big things, purpose and
mm,
legacy. And those are
wow,
huge things to leave out because that's what gives us meaning,
yeah,
right? And so that's what I started. I noticed this all along the way. I noticed this with people I met in my different businesses. Certainly in my marketing business, there were owners that retired and they were running very good businesses. They had plenty of money, but and they thought they had plenty of interests. And then they fell off a cliff
yeah,
because it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And it was
yeah,
like such a jolt.
totally.
So I started thinking about is it good enough to think about retiring as, just some things to do? Or could it be bigger than that? And that's the entrepreneur part. So where I start is creating your life as the last chapter of your life as your most brilliant.
Wow. Love that.
That sounds like more fun, right?
Yes. So exciting. Almost like you would be running towards retirement right at that point that you're
Yeah.
turning your life.
Well, at least at least doing something that would light you up every day, you
Yeah.
know? I don't know about running toward it because I mean a lot of people have loved working and they stop for different reasons. But if you could invent that, then here's the other caveat. This is a deep dive, and this is where the courage kicks in because it takes courage to do the work.
Yeah.
And what's great is I've become the guide because I've done many transitions. Partially out of need because we moved back to Philadelphia because our son needed a very big heart surgery. And so, I had to shift and I've had to shift a couple times and I started to know how to do this because I've really studied it. And it's very important to have a process. So I start with getting people to tell stories and I have them write the stories first, which, you have to be willing to do that. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be the great American novel, but one page. And it's stories of challenges met and overcome, stories of opportunities accepted, stories of dreams postponed, and stories of things that you have just, things and people you have loved. And then we go through the stories. The stories are told out loud. It's done in a group of 6. It's limited to each cohort's limited to 6 because then you get that collaboration and that community cohesiveness, and everybody gets very close. And you get the reflection of other people that you can't see because you're too blind, right?
Oh my
So,
gosh. So
yeah.
good.
So that's where we start. And then we go into really identifying, taking those stories and identifying what are the skills, what are the strengths, who are the people, and taking a really close look at how, what is shifting in your relationships, because that's another big shift that happens when you change anything. Um,
Right.
when I was divorced, I never expected that all my friends would change, but that
Yeah.
happens. And when you
Wow.
get married, it may be the same thing, right? Your single
Yeah.
friends are kind of not comfortable with you anymore, and you may see them from time to time, but we're always shifting and changing.
Yeah.
So, and really paying attention to those things really helps normalize it and makes it feel more comfortable.
Right. Instead of resisting,
Yeah,
every single change and
right.
pondering and
Yeah.
overthinking it too. Like
Yes.
a lot of our listeners on the End in Mind, we identify as highly sensitive. So when
Right.
things change, right, it's for us, it can feel like the whole world is ending. And I can imagine a lot of retirees when you don't have a distraction, right, of being in
Yeah.
work, talking the way that you used to talk. It's like, of course, this is all you're going to focus on, right? That these
Right.
relationships are
Right.
shifting, and that can
Yeah.
feel really scary too.
And you need energizing conversation. You
Yeah.
need conversations to make you think and challenge you. And that's what gets it all moving, right?
Yeah.
And then we move into starting to create a roadmap and developing some tiny experiments to try.
Cool.
So yeah, and that's fun too. So
Yeah.
it's challenging, but it's not, I mean, it's not rocket science either, right? And it's a lot easier when you've got a few people around you and a guide to help you get it done. So
Yeah.
they come out of this with a roadmap, and then at the very end, there's community that they can share, the different sharing things.
It's so beautiful what you offer. And
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like so many of us, and I'm sure as you were creating this program, you were probably like, this could be applied to so many different things, right? Because as an entrepreneur myself, a lot of my coaches would challenge me, like, what is a hobby outside of work that you have? And even sometimes today, I have a hard time thinking of it on the fly because
Yes.
this is
Right.
spend a lot of my time, right? And the majority of my days are spent working, unfortunately.
Right.
So, like thinking about that even pre ahead of time for some of our listeners, if you don't know anyone that would maybe benefit or is retiring, like thinking about this now so that when you come up to this
It's
opportunity later,
a lot easier if you do it
yeah,
in advance. It's a lot easier because you have
I,
time. You have some time to explore, and you'll have time afterwards. But I think the difference is that you're not digging yourself out of a hole. You
right.
know, um, you're not digging yourself out of resistance, and it's really nice to know that there is so much out there. And I would say the other piece of this is when people retire, they're often not that much in the community. So they don't really know where the resources are. And they also don't know where the need is. And there's
Yes.
some really interesting opportunities that haven't even been explored yet. Because you and I could see this, and this is what you're good at, and I am too. Yeah, you can see what's missing, right?
Yes.
And that's a
Exactly.
great gift for you. And
Yeah.
I have that gift as well. So it's really important to help people that don't know that, and they're like a deer in the headlights. They don't know where to start.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I love how you mentioned the resources. It's so funny. A few years back when I was in college, I volunteered at the Township Center in Middletown Township. And we actually created like retirement trips. Like people would,
Wow, that's great.
it was so fun to coordinate these
Yeah,
trips. They would go to New York. Actually, I may be able to connect you with them, Dale. That would be a
cool.
perfect
That'd be
connection.
really fun.
Very
Yeah.
sweet women, and it was such a blast because they would go to New York for the day and then they would come back, and then the next week they would go to DC. I think we did two
That's
a month.
great.
And a
Yeah.
lot of people would just keep going, and they would be on these huge, buses, and they could bring
Yeah.
snacks, and there were
So
bathrooms.
fun.
Like it was
Right.
super accessible for people. And I
And
remember
safe. Yeah.
like they had security, I think, on the buses, and they had a guide so nobody
Well,
would
you
get
don't have to
lost.
park in DC. And I mean, that just getting through that or New
That's
York.
such a good point. And like because
Yeah.
of where we're located for the listeners everywhere in the country, there's really amazing sightseeing spots like within a driving
Oh
distance.
my
And
gosh. Yeah. 5 minutes. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I really think a lot of people do retire in this area because it's so
Yeah.
accessible,
Well,
to
but
different.
culturally, it's so interesting. I
Yeah,
mean,
tell
you
us
don't
more.
have to go to the orchestra every day to have the impact of the culture,
Yeah.
um, you know, work on you because it elevates everything.
That's so interesting. Yeah, you've mentioned culture a few times. Can you tell us more like of your perception of how maybe our modern day culture may negatively impact retirees, whether that
Oh,
be the social aspect that we discussed? I'm sure there's other points here too.
I think it impacts it terribly. And
Yeah,
so it's really interesting because I know that when I was 45, what is oh, let me ask you a question. What is old to you?
that's a
What
great question. I feel like since we're both only
I know
children, like
you're gonna, don't worry about getting into trouble. Just tell me a number.
I
What
just
looks
for the
old?
list too. Yeah. Like I
What
always consider old to be maybe like 70s, 80s, right? Like when
yeah,
I would slow down in my life is how I perceive it. I know a lot of
yeah.
people my age would maybe consider earlier, in life to
Right.
be old, but since I'm an only child, I was around older people,
Yeah,
music
yeah.
like my whole life. That was like
Right.
I'm more closer with my mom's friends, than I am with
Yeah.
some of my friends.
Funny.
So yeah.
So I think that's very normal. And that's
Yeah.
an answer right there is a lot of younger people think 60's old. Some of
Yeah.
them think 55's old. I think I remember thinking, wow, those guys are still playing tennis and they're 55.
Oh,
It's
so
really,
fun.
so there is that perception where we are in a culture that values youth and
Yeah.
it does not value age at all. So that's, and if that, if I went on, there's a company called Unsplash, which used to, it still does, but it's changed. They offer free stock photographs, and I've used them on my blog and stuff. And I went to it the other day, and it was bought by a company, a stock photo company, and they've just completely taken almost all the photographs out of it that are free. It's gone. It's almost gone. And I'm so
Oh,
disappointed. But
yeah.
all of the photographs were of travel. This is the narrow definition of retirement. And
Wow.
either very old people, that could hardly walk down without holding on to each other,
Right.
or people that are, in a retirement community, or, nothing about working in a school
Yeah.
in North Philadelphia, nothing that has real purpose. It's hard to maybe show purpose, but, you know, sharing gifts that of experience, mentoring young entrepreneurs, all kinds of things like that. And I
Yeah.
think it's if you talk to people who are 60 or older, it's very, very hard to find a job if you need employment. And
Yeah.
people are viewed as suddenly incompetent.
Yes.
Suddenly, all of the experience of your life doesn't matter, and you're relegated to the lowest level jobs possible. It's pretty bad.
That's so true.
So,
Yeah.
and that's only going to change when people start to change it.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
can change, it can change.
Yeah, I'm actually
But
such a firm believer of that too. Like, to share a little story where I've seen this happen lifetime. My grandfather was chairman of the board of a local bank here. And prior to that, he ran his own real estate company out of Chester, and then they moved to Delaware County. And that was where our family grew up anyway, so it made sense to move. And he thought of this like job at the bank as kind of his like semi-retirement, because it wasn't
mhm,
nearly as strenuous, as being an
right.
entrepreneur, being in real estate and all of that. And I'll never forget, I still remember the last day that he came home from work, and he was chatting with my grandmom. I lived with them for a time. And he said, they're really trying to push me out over there, but I'm not going. Like, I will stay as long as I
Yeah.
can in this job. And I was so proud of him for doing that. But he did say, like, there was a lot of discriminatory type of language,
Yes.
age.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah,
People can really play hardball. I mean,
yeah,
it's mean.
great.
It is crazy. It's completely crazy.
And it's so
And yet,
disrespectful.
and yet, I I know a man who had a very big job. He was head of one of the very big engineering architectural firms in Philadelphia, and he retired, and immediately a nonprofit that he was that another organization he was involved with connected him to, and he supervised the building of their second edition for this school in the inner city, and it is spectacular. And it was such a nice slide into retirement for him because it
Yeah,
used all of his ability, but it cut his working out. He didn't want to work full time anymore.
yeah.
So it cut his working hours down there, but I bet he was down there almost every day.
Right. And probably he
So
was like, fun. I hop in the car and I don't have to feel
yeah, he didn't
obligated
have
to
to be there
stay
at
all day.
7. Right,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. I see
And
this
was able to.
happen so frequently. Is there anything that us, people that are still in the workforce, can do to help alleviate some of this painful experience for
What a
the
great
generations
question.
that are ready to move forward?
Couple things I think that hop off. I would say for anyone who's young and who is aware that they may change jobs,
Yeah.
start really understanding what you love.
Yeah.
It's that's the that sounds easy. That is the hardest question. When
It
I
really,
was in my marketing business, I would ask clients, what they loved, and they could tell me 10 things they hated and didn't want to do. They
yeah.
could not tell me what they loved. So
Wow.
catch yourself when you're loving something and make sure you note it.
Yeah.
That's one
Great.
thing. Um, the second thing I would say is learn to ask really interesting questions of people that you don't know.
Mm.
And so I ran into somebody yesterday who was introduced to me, and she's a systems coach. And her first question to me was, "What excites you right now?" I
That's,
love that question.
yeah.
That's an opener,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I used that last night in a meeting, and it was like a stun gun. No one
Really.
could
Yeah.
answer it.
Wow.
But it really shouldn't be used that way. It should be, I didn't mean it that way. I just thought it was a fun question.
I think that that's
And
a great question.
I agree. So, and I think the more we learn to open up our minds through questions like that, the more fun we will have. And the more opportunity we will discover because it opens different doors.
Yes. Love that. That's beautiful. That's really great advice. I was just, when you were sharing that, it just made me think about something that I recently heard, and I would just love to get your opinion on this too, because I know you
Sure.
personally, I feel like now, and the listeners, I think, will eat this up too. As the world is changing so rapidly, right? From technology to,
Oh
you know,
gosh.
the businesses, like it's happening all
Right.
very
Yeah.
rapidly. And I think that this is a great topic for us to talk about, because when things shift so quickly, it can be very difficult for the older
Oh,
generations to hop on those bandwagons, right? Because they weren't
yes,
introduced to the technology that we use
right.
until so
Yeah.
much later in life. And like, it isn't so intuitive, to a
No, it isn't intuitive. Right.
that wouldn't know anything about
Correct.
it.
Yeah.
I heard this statement about AI and I find it really interesting. I actually have said this on the podcast before, and I hope that it's true because I think that it would alleviate a lot of hectic and numbness that our society experiences. Like how many times we've said, do what you love or question what you love, and how many people can't answer those questions. Like, I really think that's us coming from a numbness in society. We've just been
I
programmed
agree. I
not think,
agree. Yeah.
right? And people are saying in things like AI will actually alleviate so much time for people that would normally have to be working, for example, like financial software, and so many people spend so many hours a year on taxes. Now,
Right.
hopefully, a lot of that will be automated, and these amazing people that work so hard will get all of this time back. I actually
Right.
feel like what you provide would also be a wonderful middleman as this transition in
Interesting.
society starts to
Yeah.
happen, because people will have an
That is
abundance
interesting.
of time, right?
Do you
Hopefully.
know what the biggest seller during the Industrial Revolution in England, the factories pulled people from the farms into the city. The working conditions were awful. I mean, they were sweatshops. Do you know what the biggest seller was at the time with that huge transition?
No clue.
Gin, gin. They had guys going around in wheelbarrows selling tots of gin when people were on a break. And it was the only
Wow.
way they could stand getting through it.
They're like, come down, get drunk. We don't care really what
Right,
you do as long as
exactly.
you're here,
Really
right?
smart. Yeah, right.
Wow, that's great. It shows what a change in society even then. People are
Yes,
like, why would I go do that all day, right? And
exactly. I
where
know.
stop
What was
and
I
say,
thinking? Right.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It makes so much sense to me because I do see the resistance, right? That maybe some
Yes.
sort of gin offering will need to be made to people that need to start to introduce AI more. I hope that this time helps people think about it differently because I do believe that that's where the world's headed.
Oh, the world is headed there. The one thing that I think is important to realize is AI provides everything that's been done. It doesn't provide any creativity.
Yeah.
So, when I started my journey in entrepreneurship, it was because my dad had had me do a career inventory in like my last year of high school, and I came out 98th percentile in executive management, and they told me I could be an admin. And it was just 180 degrees away from my skill set. And I tried to do that and practically, I mean, crashed and burned. And
Yeah.
I just, when I was 30, I said, I'm never doing this again. And that's when I started my first business. So,
I love it because that's where so many of us are. Like I worked in corporate, which was like small business for 8 months, and I literally
right.
hated it. Like I was really
Yes.
questioning the meaning of life, every day.
Yes,
I went in,
exactly.
yeah, it's
Right.
like,
What am I doing here?
what is the point of this, right? And I love
Yes.
that you shared your dad because I know that we've talked about him before outside of this recording, and he was also an entrepreneur and an
Yeah.
amazing business owner. And like me sharing more about my grandfather too, I think a lot of this is inherited because when you see other people do it and they're successful,
Yes.
you believe that you can do it. I feel for the listeners
It's
that maybe
true.
don't have that in their
Yeah.
lives.
No, there's a lot of risk with it, which is what people can't stand. They can't tolerate it. But there's not really a lot of risk when you have a process of how to do something. It's why we go to college. It's why we go to school. We learn how to do things. And
Yeah.
this is really learning how to think about something that is possibly challenging at the beginning and then starts to get really fun
Yeah.
because it's
And if
about
you're
your life, right?
exactly, and if you're
And it's
doing
about creating. It's not about solving a problem as much as it's about what do you want to create?
I love that. I'm actually going to write that down. What do you want to create? It's so interesting because I do think, and one more question before I let you go here and tell our listeners
Okay.
how to connect with you. I find that in my entrepreneurship world, like especially when I started my company and I was working full time, that I had created this like jail cell for
Right.
myself in the company,
Right.
which I think is unfortunately probably what happens with some retirees too, because they're like, well, I
Sure.
should just
I think so
pour all
too.
my energy right into this like one thing. And it
Right.
can cause a lot of for me at least, it was like a lot of anxiety. Even I was very like anxious, but also resented my decision, of like going out on my
Right.
own. Um, I love how you transition this into what can you create. Can you tell us how this mindset shift, maybe in your own experience as an entrepreneur, also helped you stay out of that jail cell, that so many of us create?
Well, going back to that story of that being 30 and deciding not to do that, I got
Yeah.
myself a copy of What Color is Your Parachute?
Ooh.
And I realized that, I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but that it's a great book and it's still probably around in the libraries. But I realized that, when you talk about, somebody said, oh, a lot of people get referred to therapy for this. This isn't therapy. Therapy is about solving a problem. And
Yes.
my experience is there are a lot of great therapists that help people with really tough internal problems. But this is really a process to just help yourself develop and get it really in tune with what you are good at and that align with your values and the people you want to be around. And so
Yes.
it's a very creative process, but
I love
fun, but not creative like it's not creative like painting a picture so much, but it is creating kind of a masterpiece of your life.
Yeah. Because it's our purpose too. Like it becomes such a commingling type
Yeah.
of dream building experience. I
Yes.
remember that that's what made me fall in love with my work. And that's what I think I go back to. Like, even if the business changes, right? And as you've developed your businesses, comes back to the core of like, why am I even doing this anyway? So
Yeah.
I love those questions and those points. Thank you so much, Dale. Is there anything else you want to
Sure.
share with us?
I would just say the only thing I would add to that is that it is so energizing
Yeah.
to really put together something that, has all of the pieces that you love in it. And you kind of want to pinch yourself and say, I can't believe I did this.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. Thank you so much. How can our
Thank
listeners get in
you.
touch with you and learn more about you outside of today's interview?
Well, I would say two things. I have a downloadable reflection that they can get to email me, dale@shareyourcourage.com. And they can they can talk to me about joining a program. I run programs every month in a 6-person cohort. So I limit it to that because it's very collegial that way. And
Yeah.
so, so that those are probably the two best ways. And is that good?
Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
that's perfect. Thank you so much. And for all of our multitasking listeners, we will have Dale's email in the show notes. Of course, just send me a DM as well, and I can personally connect you with Dale
Oh, that's
too.
great.
So thank you so much. This was so
Thank
great.
you
I
so
felt like
much. What a
this
great
was just
conversation.
I felt the same way. It was exactly what I needed today to get my
Yeah.
brain going,
We had we have nothing in common, do we?
I
So
know, it's
funny.
so funny. It really is so funny. Well, thank you so much. And thanks
Thanks,
all the listeners
Caitlin.
for tuning in.
Great. Thank you.